Well, hello and welcome. Well, this evening we're looking at Dumsor, the economy and related matters. Now, normally it would be a banter between the main party and the biggest opposition, and they're all trying to banter as to, who's the best or who did worst or who did good. And so we're going to try and break the cycle today and look at the whole issue, or look at the economy holistically, and find out that if indeed there's one single party in the country that can really, or has the solution to solve Ghana's problem. And that's what we're going to do. Now, with me in the studio, I have with my immediate left, Solomon Kansa, who's a communications director for the NDC. Communications officer.
Yeah, National Communications Officer.
National Communications Officer for the NDC.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And you didn't bring your own bantams. I'm sure.
I'll duly pay that.
And then my own brother, Alex Afenyo-Marking, also an honorable member of parliament for Efutu. And part of the finance committee?
It is so.
Yeah. So we're looking at economy. Today, Bank of Ghana has increased the policy rate by 1 mark, so it's going to 22%, which means the average Joe, if you went out there, you were, hovering nearly 30% to borrow money. Ghana has also been talking about industrialization for a long time, and indeed we are hoping to get 5,000 megawatts so that Ghana can industrialize. I say that 5,000 megawatts is not an industrialization megawatts, but let's just assume we can industrialize with 5,000 megawatts. How would industry borrow at 30% to do business, let alone compete, with the outside world? Now, this goes to both parties. So, Solomon, I'll start with you. I mean, if we look at it holistically, as a country, we're just joking. You have no energy, you borrow money at 30%, and at the back of it, you're looking at industrialization. What can you industrialize with these two factors?
First and foremost, let me extend my greetings to your cherished viewers, and also announce that this is my first time of attending this program. But then, your question rings a certain bell. That why are we at where we are, and why is it that people, even as nationals, do not have confidence in ourselves that we can industrialize? Have we done the scanning and see that we have the potentials, and that there are certain things that are drawing us back, and that we have not had leaders who want to hold the bull by the horn and defy all odds and try to break grounds? For instance, we are at a situation where we're facing some financial difficulties. And some of the solutions to this is to sometimes raise the prime rate so as to checkmate certain financial indisciplines in the banking system or what have you. But if you juxtapose that with our desire or our quest to industrialize, and the person giving out that statement is not an economist who can explain it and situate it well, what it then sends out is a message of despair and then some lack of goodwill and any attempt to bring some people on board. For instance, if you look at the trend in the agric subsector, for instance, the poultry, the rice, and what have you, government's intervention there is paying or yielding the desired results. But the pace at which we are moving and our business practices, which does not aid government's attempt to bring the desired self-reliance and also patronizing in produce that are produced from Ghana. So we have a certain dilemma.
You see, I mean, we don't patronize goods from Ghana. There's two dimensions. One, we are very unpatriotic as a people. And two, they are just not competitive. I mean, sometimes, you know, if I've gone to the market and I've only got, let's say, 10 cedis, and I can buy 2 from China, and I can buy only half if it was made in Ghana. I have a wife and children at home. You leave me no choice but to purchase the one that's been imported. And obviously, because they use technology and have cheaper loans, they're able to produce cheaper, which we can't.
On the other hand, or to the contrary, what then happens is that there are also other state agencies that are undermining the competitiveness. For instance, the Standard Board, the Food and Drugs Boards, who's supposed to raise the bar of the quality of goods that enters our market. It is not so easy or so cheap, the produce of those countries that you're talking about, but they are in categories. For instance, if you go to the market and buy a phone battery, you will get it at maybe 5 cedis or 7 cedis. But within a week, you may be tempted to buy 3 or 4 of that. When you compare that to the quality ones being sold at responsible markets, it's the same thing. But it is someone else's duty to protect the type of goods that comes into our country. It is not necessarily about the pricing. It's about the quality of good that you are going to buy, with reference to what is produced in Ghana and what is imported. Importers are the normal proverbial businessmen who want to make profit. And so they can decide to go in for abnormal or supernormal profit by going in for maybe sometimes expired goods. But it is our duty, the state institutions who are mandated to check this trend must also do so. All the time, what most of us as nationals do is that we tend to look at the government, being the executive, who are very, very minute when it comes to the system that we are operating.
The government needs to create the platform.
The platform is created. What is happening is that wickedness and lack of responsibility, and these things do take place as a result of our sense of appreciation of issues. When anything happens, the first thing we do is to look at the sector minister, but not the agency. So the sector minister who finds himself not culpable of the complaints or the said incidents tends to come out to defend him or herself. By so doing, he or she absolves the agency head.
But see, it still brings me to the bottom line that we don't have enough energy and money is too expensive.
This
is
not going to be a constant activity. What is happening is not going to be what will be there maybe in the next 2 months. This thing is subject to review. As for the energy situation, we are being told, and government has demonstrated all its readiness and preparedness to deal with it and make sure that we'll have energy efficiency and reliability.
Let me bring Alex in here. Alex, assuming, tomorrow your party was in power. As we speak today, there aren't any active factories in the country. There aren't any serious productions going on. Money is still expensive. Even if Dumsor was a thing of the past. Yeah. And I keep saying that, look, 5,000 megawatts, even if we achieved it, it's not an industrialization. If you want to industrialize, you don't talk 5,000 megawatts. That's for streetlights, ideally. But let's assume we can industrialize with 5,000 megawatts. Money is too expensive. We have no industry. So, what can you do differently? It will still be the same situation that we find ourselves in.
Well, Nana, first of all, you would agree with me that the fundamental structures of our economy are either weak or non-existent. And these have given rise to the challenges that we face in the economy. As a country, we are perceived as a high-risk economy. If you look at last year, for instance, government went to the international market to raise funds, the Eurobond. We got it at around 8.75% per annum.
Billion.
Yes. Now,
I mean, is that not too high? I mean, if you're
Yeah.
borrowing $1 billion at 8%.
that's the point I'm going to make. And then you compare that to Ivory Coast, that has just come out of war. And it's at the same time, around the same time, it was also going for around $1 billion.
Mm.
It was able to raise same at 5%. So obviously, if you are looking at it comparatively, it's so obvious that the investors out there perceive us to be a high risk. So they will lend to us at a high cost. If you go back to 2012, around November, government issued some bonds. I think UBA, was the lead manager of the facility. For SADA, government had to raise 200 million Ghana cedis. It was the cost of that was at a compound interest of 17.5%. Wow. Now, come November this year, government is going to pay almost 299 million. So you look at it that within 3 years, interest alone is over 99 million Ghana cedi. I wouldn't go into the failures in SADA, which has become a burden on government and Ghanaians. Now this year, government projects to spend over 9 billion on interest payment alone. Meanwhile, we're told by the finance minister that this year's budget is creating an export-led budget, which means that the government is going to create an export-led economy. Now, an export-led economy must at least have the poor farmer in mind. That means that you're going to encourage them to have access to the export market. For them to have access to the export market, they need to be well supported to grow their produce. But you and I know, and my brother is aware, that our agri sector, the support to the agri sector, has in the first place declined. Last week, I went to Adan for a workshop, finance committee. On the road, you see watermelon getting rotten by the road. I stopped and I asked one guy, are you the farmer? Are these produce for you? He said, yes. And who buys them? He said, well, we come and dump them by the roadside. We don't even have the money to pay for transportation to the bigger market. So the sun would just hit them hard. Eventually, watermelon, you can't preserve it for that long. After the sun had scorched them and, over 3-4 days, you lose everything.
Alex, are you saying that you would have helped this farmer if you were in power? Or
of course. There must be, if the MPP is in power, as we experienced in the Kufuor era, where support to the private sector increased, where people, banks were chasing people for facilities, and the Kufuor administration made conscious effort. If you look at, for instance, the transport sector, the support that Kufuor gave to GPRTU, where banks were financing trucks, cars for them, the agri sector, manufacturing sector, all the massive support that were introduced. I am saying that should MPP come to power again, our policy is to create a private sector-led economy. Therefore, the poor farmer who needs support to get fertilizer, to get seeds, to have access to market, and of course, create the opportunity for the manufacturing sector so that at the end of the day, there will be markets.
Alex, but where would you get the money from? Because there's no money in the system.
Very well. You see, the IMF chief, a couple of weeks back, and I always commend Graphic for its boldness in publishing that story, that we are where we are as a result of abuse Okay? The little resources that we get, the revenues that we generate, is never put to proper use. Let me give you 2 examples for our purpose to this evening. 2013, according to PIAC report, we generated over $863 million by way of oil revenue. And if you read the PIAC report, more than just, there are some projects that, according to the Ministry of Finance, were supposed to be funded from the oil revenue. And when they did their checks, there were no such projects at all. You realize that, according to PIAC, there were a lot of monies that were supposed to go into afforestation project in the north. In the records, these monies were supposed to be transferred. It never happened. A typical example, Maslock. In the records of the Ministry of Finance, it released 35 million Ghana cedis from the oil revenue for Maslock to use for onward lending. As we speak, Maslock insists that it has never received any 35 million. So the question is, where are...
But Minister of Finance saying that they've sent the money off.
Of course. And the PIAC questioned Minister of Finance to bring evidence of transferring same. In fact, I was on the Finance Committee when, during the appropriation bill, the consideration in December last year, Maslock came and showed us their records that, well, 2013, 2014, they never received any monies from government for onward lending. So what they are doing is to, as it were, recover and relend. So you ask yourself, where there are monies supposed to be for projects, and unfortunately, these monies, for some reason, they vanish into thin air. Then why then do you get up to complain that you don't have money?
Okay,
to conclude on the point, government raises money, and when government states what is going to use these monies for, it is expected that over a period, government would demonstrate that, look, we borrowed X amount, we've used it for this project. These are the effects in the economy.
So basically, and you will plug loopholes to raise money.
Not only loopholes, wanton abuse and corruption. For example, the instance of SADA, as I gave, you've raised 200 million at a compound interest. It is expected that that 200 million will be put to judicious use so that the north-south migration will cease. People can get engaged in the tree planting, bees making, a confirmed thing. And can you imagine if, for instance, the Guinea fowl project had been implemented successfully? It would have created a very big market, career opportunities for farmers in that field so that they could do their business. But as we speak, monies went into one man's pocket. He has been directed to refund. As we speak, same has not been refunded. Meanwhile, the burden is on government to pay. So if you look at it generally, you realize that there is a lack of goodwill on the part of policymakers, the authorities, in taking steps to address
land, so I can get Solomon to rebut, because I'm sure
the specific challenges that confront them. Because if you don't take steps to address these, they'll come back and hit at you. How many times haven't we been promised an end to this Dumsor?
Okay, we're going to come there. Okay, Solomon, I know you want to rebut, because I want to go to my next question. I'll give you 5 minutes and to do a bit of rebuttal. Try not to do it in your time, because now we're here. So try and see if you can, situate it between now and see if you can do a bit of rebuttal.
Well, you see, it's easier for an opposition that lacks alternative to just resort to condemnation and
but let's accept that. he hasn't just condemned. The things he has raised are factual.
That is it. And they are factual as a result of a certain leaders' resolve not to do what used to happen or exist.
So
for instance,
you're not taking us back 7 years.
No. Okay. What you need to do is that you need to come and find a situation, resolve not to allow that situation to persist, and you move in a certain direction. For instance, hiring a retired or a pensioner auditor general is subject to not auditing all the government books, because you can direct him what to do, what not to do. He is here comfortably quoting certain figures. They are as a result of the work of the auditor general. You understand? They are as a result of the work of the government that is there for all to see. So there is some amount of transparency. There's a willingness that it is not a deliberate government decision. If government, all those things is coming out, if there were an engineering of the government, then they could have shelved it or managed to hide it from Ghanaian, as it happened between 2001 and 2008. You are aware that PSI, which came to undermine private sector, the bourgeoisie start factory collapsed in 2007 before the MPP who established it left power. The government, another government has come to revamp it, reposition it, and today their exploit is there for all to see. Pottery, rice, and other industrialists went to court to challenge a government that you introduce certain facilities in your budget which were to be in our favor, but we have realized that we've reneged on it. Court should force you to do it. As the court was about to deliver judgment, the same government was in parliament withdrawing that facility, which undermined local industries. The same people are today condemning a government which is reversing that trend. Today, we have a diff that is giving private investors, the pharmaceuticals, the rice farmers, the textile and garment industry are being revamped as a result of government's intention to help this country grow from this indigenous angle. SADA, you applauded the idea because that is one of the wonderful opportunities of the North. You go to an area and help them to grow from their comparative advantage. And that investment will never go waste, even though it did not materialize. Auditor General has captured it. It is documented that somebody did not invest whatever that was given and he has to pay it back. We have it. Do we have a single document on PSI that today we can comment about it? It was just because we have a hired Auditor General who doesn't have legitimate of work, so we can direct him and manipulate him. You understand? Daco Farms collapsed in 2003 when they signed an agreement of tax inflows of Houston to also resort to importation of frozen poultry products. Today, the reverse is that government is supporting poultry farmers by establishing broiler centers, by giving quota systems that if you want to import poultry products, you must satisfy about 30% of local broiler activities. The rice subsector, it is being quoted because government believes that we can grow our local rice industry. Remember, a government came to meet a vibrant decision to establish a rice farm termed the quality grains. Currently, Nana Akufo-Addo, who want to lead Ghana, decided for an option to just go on trying the persons who attempted to make that facility work. Yes, wonderful. Maybe they might have erred financially, but must we suffer the company lying fallow for 8 years just because we thought that some people engage in criminality? You have this group who thinks that they are better off. Bonds and its usage. You go for Eurobond at 7.5%. 7.5%. Somebody has went for Eurobond at 8% with its internal financial challenges that is known to all. You use your Eurobonds into non-repayable ventures. So government will have to come and procure another loan to refinance or deal with that loan's maturity. Other than that, Ghana's finance will be thrown into another chaos. You raise local bond from commercial bank to celebrate Ghana at 50. You understand? You are priding yourself. That was a better alternative than a government raising bond to invest in SADA, Ghana's food basket community, where certain things could not go on well, but others are doing well. You see? So I believe that the era of blame game, the era of lack of appreciation of issues, the era of picking figures, for instance, like in artistic persuasion, these are things that are there. You are not telling anybody any new story because government, it is in Auditor General's report. So you don't need to even waste time on that. I want to put on record.
Let me take a break here, and then when we come back, the conversation continues. Don't move on. Well, thank you very much for staying. We're looking at Dumsor, the economy, related matters, and with me in studio is Solomon Nkansa, National Communication Officer for the NDC, and Alex Afenyo-Markin, Honorable Member of Parliament for Efutu. And
I just a minute of the time just to get some few points across. You see, when we engage in a debate like this, I believe that as much as possible, we must try to deal with the realities that would make whatever information we're giving out more credible. In this country, we have laws. And I believe that as a government, when you succeed another government and certain things are wrong, you look at the framework of your laws, and if there is anything criminal, you proceed to court and deal with the perpetrators. Correct?
Correct.
Now, if you are in your 7th year and you still pursue this pirated argument that government, Ghana at 50, Kufuor government borrowed money at commercial bank, you've had 7 years. If there is anything that you find wrong, what is stopping you? Correct? Now, unfortunately, you are even unable to give credit to the man who initiated this private sector program to support the Ghanaian businessman. You sit here and say that by introducing PSI, he collapsed local industries. Then you turn around to say that, oh, you have revamped. I believe that it's an argument in bad faith. Now, we look again, and I thought that he was going to really address the issue of SADA. Yes, it is captured at page 28 of your NDC manifesto for the 2012 elections. And it's an initiative I fully support. However, the question is that you borrowed money for the project, and all these monies, together with other monies, if you look at the PIAC report, page 87, over 50 million Ghana cedis also went to the same company as Ontaba for the same tree planting. As we speak, that project, government itself has abrogated the contract, okay? And you are supposed to pay come November. If you sit here and tell me that, oh, it's as a result of the Auditor General's report, please, with the greatest respect to my brother, SADA report, the issues about SADA are never in any Auditor General's report. By the way, we've had Auditor General's report since 2000 or even before. How do you say that, oh, because perhaps a certain Auditor General was a retired officer when he was appointed, or that when he was in office, because he was a retired officer, he did not audit certain sectors of the economy. As a result, things went unchecked. Please, the realities of the challenges of today are: 1, high cost of living; 2, high cost of borrowing; 3, inflation; 4, the never-ending Dumsor, which this government has time and again promised Ghanaians, oh, we're going to end it. We're going to end it. Now, Dr. Kwabena Donkor has put his reputation on the line. Mr. President was in Parliament to deliver the State of the Nation address. When he came, he promised Ghanaians that by April, Dumsor was going to end. They were going to bring in 450 megawatts of emergency power. As we speak, we don't have the emergency power badges. Even the company, Car Power, which is supposed to bring in these badges, has told Ghanaians that, look, we are not engaged in emergency power production. We do long term. And as we speak, out of bad faith, he says that his government is engaged in transparency. I beg to differ. I sit on the finance committee. The Car Power purchase agreement, the emergency, they call it emergency supply of power. It has not come to Parliament. They never brought it to Parliament.
Because maybe it's an emergency.
No, if the Constitution defines what ought to be done in a certain way, Article 1815 was interpreted in the Waterville case, and the Supreme Court held, among others, that in a transaction where government is a party, same must be given prior approval by Parliament. Now, how then do you situate this agreement, whereupon government of Ghana through the power minister negotiates a deal for the supply of 450 megawatts of power, and when it gets to the execution of contract, you say, okay, it should be between ECG directly and Car Power. Meanwhile, through a government directive, GMPC is supposed to issue a guarantee to take care of defaults, payment default and all that. Then Ministry of Finance comes back to issue a comfort letter. I know in commercial circles that a comfort letter is a non-committal letter. But this comfort letter is a residual guarantee which commits government, because in the comfort letter, government says that, look, we are the sole shareholders of ECG. We are also the shareholders of GMPC. And it assures Car Power that if ECG does not pay for the power supply, government would endeavor, that is the operative way, would endeavor to pay. How then do you say that a transaction like this that you've supported with your comfort letter is not a transaction of which government is a party, so parliamentary approval is not required? I'm saying that it's another way government tries to hide certain transactions from Parliament. Look at GMPC going to borrow 700 million, and conveniently the learned Attorney General advises government that, oh, because GMPC is an entity on its own, an independent state institution, is a limited liability company, therefore you don't need to go to Parliament. But the question is that if you look at the company code, section 102 or so, the shareholders of every company have the final power to approve the decision of the board. So the question for consideration is, who are the shareholders of these entities? Aren't they the Ghanaian people? And who are the representatives of the Ghanaian people? How would an AGM be convened? Wouldn't it be Parliament sitting as a plenary or as a committee considering said decisions of the board for and on behalf of the Ghanaian people? So I really disagree with the position of my friend that this government is transparent. This government is never transparent. You see, this government is engaged in blame game, argument of convenience. But it forgets that between 1981 and now, the tradition of this government, of course, from PNDC, NDC 1 and 2, if you calculate, we are 34 years, okay? Mm-hmm. Out of it, their tradition has been in power for 26 years. If you calculate it to now, are you saying that for the 8 years of the Kufuor administration and your 26 years, Kufuor's administration did absolutely nothing, and that the 8 years of Kufuor administration destroyed the fundamentals of the economy? Is that what you want Ghanaians to believe? By the way, this Dumsor has persisted, and we are in the 4th year. Dumsor started in President Mills's era. When he passed on to eternity, I remember President Mahama talking about Dumsor. In fact, during the IEA debate, he was saying that it was because of a pipe burst on the West Africa gas pipeline thing, and by November works will be completed. By January 2013, Dumsor was going to end. As we speak, haven't Ghanaians been tolerant enough? To the extent that even today, celebrities want to have a peaceful vigil. This government is so intolerant and using surreptitious means to torpedo their right to hold a peaceful protest.
Let me bring
the European Union, I want to conclude. The European Union has come out. Normally, diplomats don't interfere in domestic affairs, but they've been bold to come out. Last 2 weeks, I think they held a press conference where they more or less directed government to take urgent steps at ending this Dumsor. The British High Commission has closed down British Council. The EU chief, the IMF chief, when Graphic made a publication on why we went to the IMF for assistance, said that it's as a result of our own abuse of our resources. Because when we discovered oil, we were under the illusion. Look at the statement. The woman used these strong words. These are not words coming from the Ghanaian opposition anyway. It's coming from a stakeholder who under normal circumstances is supposed to be at least diplomatic. To end, the US aid outgoing director, when they held a banquet, for him as part of a send-off, he boldly said the effort by this government in ending the energy crisis are unsustainable and expensive. Can government respond to that? So when we criticize them, we criticize with a constructive mind. This is the most decent opposition ever in this country. We try to go on issues, we try to engage our brothers, and we expect them to respond to same in good faith. But where they try to make sweeping comment, and Kufuor, look at all the time, you ask him, what are you doing today? You are unable to say it. We are in crisis. Address the crisis. Don't engage in, and yesterday, you are not new in government. This is your 7th year. And this is 7th year. What again?
Sure
what other opportunity do you want?
I'm sure Solomon won.
You've only failed the Ghanaian people. I'm afraid.
Solomon, I'll let you do your rebuttal.
He has succeeded in confusing himself because he raised certain things and he could not debunk those things that are talked by just try to complain around them. I said that there is no document on PSI's audited books. You understand? You can't tell me that then go to this year. You are in Parliament, Finance Committee. I am not a member of Parliament. There's a Public Accounts Committee that sits and do a sort of re-evaluation of Auditor General's work.
See, but let's just admit that PSI was illegal. But you see that currently, what's going on now?
No. What I just want to paint to the Ghanaian is that look, all what he's saying about some revelation of monies here, monies there, are not just a matter of coincidence. You understand? They are as a result of a government's commitment towards making sure that he becomes accountable to the people of this country, as against their period where they hide a lot of things. And that is what I'm talking about. And that's what I wanted him to challenge.
No, but it still doesn't make things better today.
No, I am not saying we are in a better days. Our government has not told Ghanaians that things are wonderful and that Ghanaians are enjoying. What we have said is that we face crisis. One, in energy. Two, financial aspect of the economy. As a result of the compensations reform, as in salaries of the Ghanaian public workers, has had a very dire consequences on the finances of the country. In the West African sub-region, revenue to compensation ratio supposed to be around 33%. But in Ghana's case, it's 73%. You understand? It's woefully beyond the acceptable practice standards. But you need to deal with it as a country, because you need national cohesion as well. If you don't pay your workers well, you cannot get them to join you in your new transformation agenda you have brought on board. So the first thing is to convince the Ghanaian worker to get on board, and then you can achieve your set targets. The next thing has to do with post-HIPC country. Makes you a country or an economy the business community will not have trust in. It is not because of the economic performance today. No, it's because of the caption.
No, but our donor partners actually, raised concerns about the way in which we're spending money, and therefore they withheld.
No, that wasn't the conditions. It is not captured anywhere. The conditions was that first, when we were based and were positioned as a lower level middle income country, there are certain opportunities from the international donor partners that you will forfeit when you enter them. And also, when you severe ties of IMF, they have every muscle to find a way of undermining your flow of donor funds. The last time the EU team met, they said that now that the IMF has come on board, they are now willing to make some monies available. The first one was about 135.
Is it because of the same word, policy credibility? Now there's policy credibility because of
policy credibility does not amount to a financial mismanagement. You understand?
Well, no, I mean,
but the first thing that you said, no.
Yeah.
You see, the first thing that you said was in respect to financial mismanagement.
And so people held back their money?
No, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. You see, I'm not an economist. I'm a spokesperson for my party in somehow.
I'm not an economist too.
Yes, but the issue at stake is that there's no way that donor partners said that they've withheld their commitment due to the fact that government of Ghana is being indisciplined as far as financial reporting is concerned. But they do talk about fiscal indiscipline. When we talk about fiscal indiscipline, it's about...
Is it because I used the wrong word?
No. There are two different things. You understand? Fiscal indiscipline is not corruption-prone activity.
No, I didn't say corruption.
No. But I said mismanagement.
Yeah.
Mismanagement is corruption-prone. You understand?
So fiscal indiscipline.
Indiscipline.
Okay. So
in a more economic sense.
So let me rephrase my question. Is it because because of our fiscal indiscipline, donors withheld their money, big boys
to some extent, I will allude to that. On the other hand, you see,
but does it make a major difference though? If it's fiscal indiscipline or if it's financial mismanagement?
Yes, mismanagement is that. For instance, the tall list of JIDA, whatever that they talk about. When you allude to financial mismanagement, they will be comfortable in always going in that
fiscal
direction.
indiscipline.
Now,
it's more a partial way of
now you now, like I was on something that when you exit HIPIC, you can't access concessional loans. So you go to the commercial market to secure bonds, loans in the area of bonds, which have short duration periods. You understand? And so all the time, when you go in for the bonds, you must invest the bonds in ventures that has capacity to repay.
Solomon, but the argument is that in terms of revenue, gold, oil, in all these sectors, there's been quite significant amount of money allocated to the state. Or
don't be deceived by what the MPP is banding around. You understand?
It's false.
They are all false. They are talking about the quantum export earnings as against how much that comes to government. You understand? For instance, if they take the oil earnings, they quantify the whole oil earnings, not the 13.5% earnings government of Ghana gets out of our oil. You understand? So don't follow the MPP's argument in that direction. It's a very desperate move by a group that don't want to be honest.
I'll take a quick break here before my director and producer kill me, and then I'll come straight back. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. It's been an interesting